Aloha and welcome. This is your astrologer Tom, and in this video, let's talk about the astrological look ahead for this year, 2023. Last year, I got it out a little bit earlier in the beginning of January, and this year took a little bit more time to put together, but we have it nonetheless. And it's always good to go through because I'll probably be referring back to things I talk about in this particular video in any transit videos done throughout the year, if we're doing any this year. We shall see. So let's dive right in. So Mars went direct just about, let's see, it's the 21st of January right now. So on the 12th of January, Mars went direct. So there's a lot of active minds going on, a lot of active thinking until about the end of March. And basically, the ideas from the last 2 months are beginning to take off as Mars went from retrograde back to direct. The action that was more internal, the ideas presented, are now moving forward and beginning to take off. Mercury went direct on the 18th. Mars, as I just said, went direct on the 12th. And Uranus goes direct tomorrow. So 3 planets, 2 personal planets, and 1 outer planet going direct that were all retrograde. Lots of inner work the last few months now. So we're at an interesting point right here at the beginning of the year where a lot of energy is now moving in that more outward, in the outer world, more in that direction. Big picture though, for the next few years, many astrologers consider this multi-year period to be a new era for humanity. Because, what does that exactly mean? Well, who knows? But Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, the outermost, slowest moving, and more transpersonal planets, they're all changing signs in the system that I use. And so a lot of astrologers are looking at this. There's a shift in the world. And so for humanity in general, because they are the outer planets and they're very slow moving and they're all changing signs during this 3-year period. So we're going to look at that. Now, keep in mind that as even with the outer planets, there's a period where they're direct, there's a period where they'll go retrograde, and then there's a period where they go direct again. Interestingly enough, for the most part, as these planets are going into their next sign, it's like they visit that next sign and then they come back to where they're at now, and until they ultimately move forward in that next sign. So you want to remember this cycle, that it's like that as these planets are getting ready to change signs, it's like they step into what's to come. It's like they dip their toe in the water. They test these things out. They see what it's like. So we get an experience of that energy. Then there's a time period that comes back to the original sign that they're in, the one they're in right now. And then the planet goes direct again and moves back in, kind of jumping in and not turning back. So this is an interesting cycle to pay attention to, because as these planets move forward, right, and they go into that next sign, it's like, okay, it's something new for that planet, something new for us. They're the outermost planets. They move very, very slowly. It's a new experience for us. Then as they come back into familiar energy, goes more inward, and it steps more into familiar energy, it's like, oh, okay, things calm down. Only until they go direct again, and it becomes more outward, and it becomes more of what we just got a taste of. And so this is a very interesting experience that we need to pay attention to. So unlike what I did last year, where we kind of looked at some of the key themes, I'm going to do this one from the perspective of the planets and what the planets are doing, and so we can pay attention to those cycles. And so let's actually start with Pluto. And Pluto entered its current sign, it's the outermost planet, entered its current sign in 2008. So, I mean, 2008 in the States, there was stock market crash. I believe it was considered a recession, right? There was a lot of financial things that were shifting. And really, I mean, Pluto is the planet of transformation. And so what we were doing from 2008 until now is really transforming the structures of our lives. Then now in mid-March to mid-June of this year, there's this new transformational energy coming. And that's mid-March to mid-June. It's like that in this particular case is that 3 month or 4 month test, the dip the toe in the water, test it out, see what this new transformational energy is like. And then basically after from that time period of June until January of next year, Pluto will be back in the sign that it's in right now. And it'll give us a chance to finish what it is that we were meant to do, to transform, to bring those things into completion. It's interesting because Pluto is often transformation. I mean, it's often considered, the endings of things at times. Whereas Uranus can be more sudden, Pluto can also bring endings. So it's a chance to wrap things up to prepare for this new cycle. And so it's almost like that 3 or 4 month period from March to June, where we're really understanding what it is that we're being called that next phase is. And then from June until January of the following year, next year, we have to prepare for that and create these opportunities and leverage these energies so that we can actually move forward on the path. We need to let go of old structures, and we need to be sure that we've let go of them. This is one where it's less about holding on to the past and more about completely transforming. And so this can be financial. This can be in our thinking, in our beliefs. It's a level of transformation, and from at a much larger expression than just the individual. So this is more. That's why a lot of astrologers will consider it a new era for humanity. So during this then shift, right, from where it's at today to the retrograde period back to into the next sign, is we're really shifting from the past and the methodical and the predictable and the stable to a more future looking, right? So less past looking, more future looking, trusting what isn't seen, trusting the unknown. Pluto is often considered, Pluto can be considered to be the ruler of the unknown to some degree. Trusting what isn't seen and diving into possibilities, unlimited possibilities, diving into here's what's possible, as opposed to this step-by-step methodical structure and things that we've had kind of that restructured in the structure that we were dealing with since 2008. Now, Neptune's actually going to stay in the same sign this year. And it's not actually changing, but it does go retrograde from June 30th for about 4 months. And so during that time, a heightened intuition, self-reflection, right? Neptune can be very intuitive. Neptune can be idealistic and have ideals. Neptune can sometimes bring a fog. Okay, so during this time period, there's this inner reflection, inner intuition. Can be an inner fog. It can be like, well, okay, what steps are you moving? What path are you on? Like, what are you doing with your life, kind of thing. And yet, it's gonna require us to need to tap into our intuition a bit more. Uranus is going to move direct tomorrow, as I had mentioned, the 22nd, and direct until the end of August. It will then go retrograde until the start of 2024. And so Uranus, so Pluto, the great transformer, Neptune, the great dissolver, Uranus, the great awakener. And so this can bring financial structures, a focus on physical health becoming more important. So a level of awakening, some form of awakening. Saturn changes sign on March 7th. It doesn't go retrograde this year. And this is an interesting placement for Saturn to change signs, because Saturn does like structure. And Saturn's entering a much more free-flowing energy. It's either going, so some astrologers will say that, okay, Saturn doesn't like that energy. I mean, what does that really mean? I mean, Saturn wants to bring structure. it could be that it's loosening up some of the structure. So it's Saturn. So the structure is being asked to be a little bit more fluid. It could be that we're wanting to build structure and we have to be a little bit more flexible in how we do it. It's just, or it could also be that our structure and our foundation is not as solid as it's been. And so, nonetheless, it's an interesting placement, and it's much more outward because we're not going retrograde, and that sign changes in March. Jupiter changed signs at the end of last year, 20th of December, and it's going to do so again in May of this year, and where it will be for about until about May of next year, which is actually a little bit faster, if I recall correctly, than what Jupiter is used to doing. And so the interesting thing here is this is actually a great time for new venture. It's a great time right now during the beginning of 2023 to take advantage of any new venture. I know I always have I don't always have a new venture going, but I have some ventures going at any given time. And was making a pivot in one of my businesses, and it just lined up the energy just on its own, and then realized, oh, this makes sense. And now I'm always about riding the cycles, so I'm like, all right, this is the perfect energy to take advantage of the timing to go and bring this new venture into fruition. Now, during this retrograde transition, okay, so let me go back for a second. It's Jupiter's going to change signs again in May of 2023, as we said, and then so what's interesting here is Jupiter may feel this energy of Jupiter may feel like we're actually going from rapid fire, pedal to the metal, and then as it goes retrograde, slamming on the brakes. And so it's like we're marching ahead, and then all of a sudden everything comes to a screeching halt. Generally, it's not all of a sudden. There's a bit of things start appearing to slow down. So we don't want to go overboard. We don't want to have excess. We don't want to stop. We slow and steady to win the race. All right. So you're plowing ahead, you're making progress, and then it's okay if things slow down a bit, and then you just go a little bit more methodical, step by step through it. Right. So this is it's not. So what's interesting here is it's not that the venture didn't work out per se. It's just that the energy changed in the method of actually moving forward on that particular path. So it may appear you're like, well, everything was working, going. Why did everything slow down? This must not be the right thing to do. No, that's not what it's saying. Not necessarily. Okay, what it's just saying is there's a shift in this energy here where we need to go slow and steady. Okay, and we just need to be methodical through it, and then we'll be able to pick things back up again. Take advantage of the pedal to the metal energy, though, to gain momentum, and before things calm down, because it's going to be easier to make progress during the pedal to the metal energy than it is when things are already slow, right? Because then you have more inertia to overcome, versus there's a lot less inertia with the pedal to the metal energy. So we'll talk about Mercury too. So Mercury has 3 retrogrades. It just wrapped up the first one here. So 1229 of last year to 118 just wrapped that up. We have another one in April 21st to May 15th, and 1213 to 12. So they're about 3 weeks each, usually 3 times a year on average. And at this point, of course, our communication will go inward. We have to review, rethink, revisit. All of those magical words. I have a whole course on Mercury retrograde, on how to use that to actually create the things you want in your life, actually, so that you're not scared of it, because it's basically on average 9 weeks a year. It's 2.5 months almost. You really want to be able to use that. I'll leave a link to that in the description. And then let's move on to the nodes here. So the nodes, my favorite topic. They are changing signs this year. They only change, of course, once every 2.5 years on average, and they don't repeat for 18 years. So this cycle of what we're changing to now we basically haven't seen since, I believe it'd be about 2004. And so we're shifting from the last 2.5 years into this year. We're shifting from the last 2.5 years being more about stability and structure. And now we're actually tapping more into our individuality, diving more into who we are as an individual. And that can be self-confidence, that could be finding ourselves in partnerships, and just what makes what's right for us. So who are we? And then bringing our own individuality into the partnership. And of course, if you have my Nodal Path course, you'll have a lot more information about how to tap into the various nodes. I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. And really, here's something that I put at the end, because I know that not everyone will actually watch the video all the way through. And I want to reward you for doing that, because I want you to know that the period from tomorrow, when Uranus goes direct, for 10 months, all 10 planets will actually be direct. So all 10 planets will actually be direct. And so it is a great time to move forward. Actually, I'm looking at this, realizing that it shouldn't say 10 months up here. It should say 10 planets. It's a 3-month period, because we just talked through the retrogrades. It's a 3-month period from January 22nd for 3 months, where all 10 planets will be moving direct. And it is a great time to move forward. So if you combine the fact that all 10 planets are direct for the next 3 months with everything that we just went over, with the Mars stuff, I mean, just a number of different things that we just talked about, it's actually a very big green light to move forward. So I'm putting in a ton of effort to set up basically the next decade of my life, essentially, in the next 3 months, working my butt off to pull that off. This is, I mean, all of the energy is outward. All of the energy is just, everything's moving, right? And so, it would almost, unless you have like a ton of planets in retrograde in your natal chart, I mean, the transits are just going to want to drive you to move outward. So from January 22nd, for 3 months, all 10 planets will be moving direct. This is the time to move. This is the time to take that goal that you have and put in massive effort. And because you're like, if somebody says to me, well, why do I have to put in massive effort anyway? Well, yes, but go with the grain of the universe. The energy is supporting that effort right now. And so put in that effort right now, and it will pay off, especially with all the other cycles that we just talked about. And so that's 2023 in a nutshell. If you do have any questions or comments about this, please put them below. And if you like this video and like to see more like it, please subscribe. As always, aloha, ahui ho. I'll talk with you again soon. Take care.